Hello everyone, and welcome back to NINJAGOCast. The dojo is open, and I am your Sensei Eljay.
I'm Messa.
I'm Sakota.
And I'm Josh.
And this is NINJAGOCast, and we are the masters of Podjitsu.
Oh my god, I forgot. We're back. Podjitsu.
Oh yeah, we're back.
Oh no, we're back.
Oh yeah. It's like that one dinosaur movie where they're like, we're back, and they have this like musical sequence through New York. You guys ever seen that movie?
No.
I have not.
No? Oh.
I think you're just lame, El.
Oh.
Wow.
Okay.
I don't think that movie exists.
First
Sorry
of all,
to say.
brutal. Second of all, I mean, it's certainly possible. All right,
Do be like that.
hello everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of NINJAGOCast. This should be episode 71.
Should be.
Please let me know how things sound in the comments. Hopefully the stream is looking good and sounding good and everything is good. I really hope so, at least.
I'm sure it's fine. You're a good stream host.
Oh man, oh shucks. Gee, thanks, pal.
Gosh, golly gee.
All right, we'll go ahead and get some plugs out of the way. First of all, if you're new here, welcome. This is Keep the Peace, and this is NINJAGOCast, our Ninjago podcast. It's one of the longest running Ninjago podcasts, if not the longest running, because before it was called NINJAGOcast, this podcast existed previously in the form of Ninjago podcast coverages. So,
Yes.
welcome. If you like the content that we make, feel free to smash that subscribe button with a ninja
yeah.
kick. Ugh. I hate it.
Uh-huh.
All right, no, I didn't like that.
With a ninja kick.
Yeah. No, I didn't like it. And if you're worried about missing brand new videos, make sure to Ninjago to the notification bell. No, I still don't like it. It feels dirty.
No, it's epic.
I'm not
It's
used
fine,
to it.
El. You just gotta embrace the YouTube shill culture, like most people already think we are.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
What do we have to lose by actually committing? Only our self-respect.
We lost that a long time ago, especially here on NINJAGOcast, where we called ourselves the masters of Podjitsu.
Exactly.
In any case, feel free, if you're interested in subscribing and heading over to the TTV message boards at board.ttvchannel.com to continue the conversation. You need to be 13 years or older and follow the rules, and you'll have a good time. Additionally, we do have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/the TTV channel. For as low as $1 a month, you can help support us and the content that we create and join our Patreon Discord server. It's a good time.
It is. We have good talks there.
Yeah, we do. And I think that's about it. That covers the plugs, unless you guys have anything you want to mention.
Nah, that's basically it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. In that case, let's go ahead and get started. We've got two big things on the docket today. I guess technically three. First, we're going to go ahead and talk to Meso very briefly about his thoughts on Ninjago Quest for Lost Powers 4 Untold Tales, of which he just reviewed, and I mean just reviewed here on Keep the Peace.
Yeah. There's a full video where I kind of go over my thoughts as best as I can without giving any spoilers, because Lego made the review embargo 4 days ahead of the release date. So, there's limits to what we can discuss without ruining the story for all of you. If you want my full thoughts, go watch the video. But to give kind of a brief summation, I liked exactly half of it. That's my hot take. It's 4 stories, 1 per ninja. I really liked 2 of them. Like, better than the show has been in years for these respective characters. And just general good use of them in their roles, making use of their history, the interesting things about them. It's Jay and Zane that I think were done really well. And then the other 2, Kai and Cole, it was like, it borders on just okay, 2, this is the worst the character has been done. Which the Kai, the Red One Ninjago, has the honor of being. So overall, I'm kind of split about it personally. Would I recommend it? That's basically going to be up to your personal decision as to how you feel about supplemental material. Because I know more than a few community people kind of hate the idea of them putting canon significant stuff into books. And if you're in that camp, yeah, this book will basically be an insult to how you consume stories, and you might want to avoid it. But, you know, as the resident crystallized hater, like, maybe not the resident one, we all didn't like it to varying degrees, but I was certainly one of the more vocal people about it. You know, I try not to hold these authors responsible for crystallized failings. Like, I don't think they should have lost their powers at all, only to get them back in a random book, which that's publicly revealed information, by the way. It was in a book preview. Spoiler alert, the book about lost powers involves them finding their lost powers. Yeah, but is it the writer's fault? No, they're just doing the best with the premise they have to work with. So I'm keeping my irritation with that squarely in the crystallized camp, rather than holding it against the book, which I think is only the fair thing to do. So
The book's written by Tracy West, right?
It's written by 2 people. So Tracy West wrote 2 of the stories, and then Adam Beechin wrote the other 2.
Do we know which ones?
Yes. Tracy West wrote Kai and Zane, and then Adam Beechin wrote Cole and Jay, which I find very interesting.
Because Tracy West is also like the author of Jujutsu Brothers, and I think she's been writing like Ninjago books since Ninjago started. Like, they're very old Ninjago books from Tracy West.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that is very interesting. I'm glad still getting a chance in the modern era to keep doing stuff.
Yeah.
That's basically all I got. I mean, there's more I could say, but it would be spoilerific. I think if you're a Ninjago fan, you would probably enjoy it. If you're a Ninjago fan who hasn't liked the recent seasons, there's a chance you may really enjoy aspects of it. But it's going to be a fundamental call. You know, a purchase matters less about the book's quality and more how you feel about the book's existence, I guess, is a concise way to put it. But I look forward to be able to have more detailed discussions at some point in the future.
Yeah. The book comes out March 7th in the United States. We were not given release dates outside of the U.S. However, once it does come out, we will make sure to do another Ninjago cast going over the book with spoilers. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah.
That's all I really got.
Fair enough. No, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that.
You are very welcome.
With that being the case, let's go ahead and tackle our second topic today, which ties into this one, and that is Ninjago and supplemental content. So, most of the folks here at Keep the Peace natively are familiar with a LEGO theme called Bionicle, and the way Bionicle ran its story... We can say that word now, guys. The way that Bionicle ran its story was primarily book-based. And
yes.
That being the case, it had a consistent through line when it came to the novels up until a point. And then it started branching off into comics. It branched into story serials released online. There was a lot of additional supplemental material that added to all of that. Ninjago, on the flip side, visually has had the consistent story told with the show. The show has been the through line and the main vessel for which Ninjago's story has been illustrated. Recently, we've been getting content which is considered canon and ties directly into the show. And that's an interesting thing to discuss. So let's go ahead and do that.
Well, I mean, it's not that recent, right? Dark Island was 2016, and that is like the big one, I guess.
It was definitely the first one. I know a lot of people a lot of people wrote that off as an anomaly, and like an experiment that wouldn't become the norm. I'd say what makes it worth discussing is that it is becoming the norm. There's more and more and more of it. You know, back then it was like, oh, every single book is non-canon except for Dark Island. And now it's more moving towards every single book is canon, unless it isn't.
Not really. There is still non-canon books, and there's the big thing that's the magazine comics, which are all basically non-canon.
Which non-canon books have come out recently, though?
There's like an Island tie-in book. There's a Seabound tie-in book, and no one has ever said at least those are canon, so I don't think they are.
I suppose that's fair. I haven't really heard of either, but I'm not denying they exist. Obviously, they do. Just like when I think of this discussion, I think, you know, Spinjitzu Brothers, Garmadon, etc., which are the highly talked about ones from the last 2-3 years. But yeah, I'm sure there are others. The expectation is becoming that if it is highly publicized and marketed, it's designed to be canon. That's kind of the expectation, which is why it was such a big deal when we were like, oh, is Garmadon actually canon, though? Ooh.
I mean, from all we've heard, it is.
From all we've heard.
Yeah.
Which is all we can really go off of.
I mean, yeah, more or less. I mean, so I guess real quick, spoiler alert for Garmadon. If you haven't read Garmadon yet, we do encourage it. It is good.
It's neat.
But we are going to discuss some of the things that happen in it. Also ties into the ending of Crystallized, so heads up if you haven't watched that yet. First, I'm surprised you're here. Second, you're about to get spoiled on it.
If you haven't watched that yet, God, I wish I was you. I would love to live in blissful ignorance.
You guys remember when we didn't know how it ended?
Oh, that was a nice time. Oh, man. I want that time back.
So we'll never get that time back. In any case, so Garmadon is actually available for purchase individually. There are 5 issues that you can buy on their own at comic shops around the world. Additionally, if you go on a Lego shop at home, you can find Volume 1 of Garmadon for sale. I think it's about $12-13, and you can get that in... Is it considered paperback?
I believe so.
It's not hardback.
Yeah.
So
Soft cover,
yeah.
whatever
And it's
you want
nice.
to call it. Yeah.
I definitely... It's nice. I got it, so... In
Yeah,
any
me
case,
too.
so
And
the main point of contention is that Garmadon ends in a way that allows it to connect with the main story, but doesn't necessarily do so like immediately.
I think it's pretty obvious why. We kind of asked Tommy in the last spin about this. He kind of gave the answer that, like, and with this being called Volume 1 on Lego Shop at Home, I would assume the plan was whatever to continue this, to do like Garmadon Volume 2 at some point. And I mean, in the last comic, it very much sounds like they plan to do more Ninjago comics at Skybound, so I assume the Garmadon series will be continued at some point, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that's the reason. I'd say that's the solution. I'd say the reason is just that the writers did not communicate with the writer of the comic about Garmadon's status. But maybe that's just my doomer, pessimistic outlook. But usually that explains a lot of discrepancies between supplemental media. Like, I'm very used to having this conversation about, like, quote unquote one-way canonicity, because I'm a huge Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan, and I love the chance to shill it every chance I get. So here's my monthly shilling time. In Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., spoilers, there's a point where it desyncs from Marvel movie continuity, not in the sense of it being referenced, but in the sense of the timelines not matching up, and it was right around Infinity War time. And the reason, as we've come to know, is because the writers of the movies did not tell the writers of the show that they were going to do a 5-year time skip in Endgame. They just didn't tell them that information. So the S.H.I.E.L.D. writers wrote their show not knowing that there was going to be a 5-year time jump. And it caused some issues in the timeline. And that's kind of how I interpreted Garmadon. But maybe you're right. Maybe they plan to do a volume 2. If they do, does it really matter whether it was intended or not? If it eventually gets resolved? Not really.
For me, it kind of sounded like that when Tommy replied to that question on the live stream, that it was intentional, but I mean, maybe it wasn't.
Whatever, whether it was or not, it may go that route. And it'd be nothing but a good thing, because Garmadon was good, and I would love more of it.
Yeah. Garmadon was like probably my favorite Ninjago content in 2022. Or like it was great. It's also like a story I don't think they would have ever been able to tell in the TV show.
Definitely
it's very
not.
like introspective for Garmadon as a character. It has like a lot of like references to past events.
Absolutely.
I don't think they do like this in the show, so I think it's like a perfect story for supplementary material.
I agree.
Yeah.
What I will say on this conversation is recently I had a very fun time because I was invited on a community podcast. A person by the name of Krusty783, popular, prolific Ninjago YouTuber, invited me on his podcast to talk about this specific issue. And he invited me on with the context of, hey, you're a Bionicle fan. You're experienced with this. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And he was like, well, didn't Bionicle get canceled or something because it got too complex and people stopped being able to follow it? And I was like, not quite.
Yeah.
There's more to it, but it's interesting to me that that is the reputation and that that's what people think who aren't super well versed. The fact that it had a million different pieces of supplemental content is seen, at least by some, as an intrinsic negative. And it was equated directly to Halo in the conversation as another thing that has had that phenomenon of having, quote-unquote, required reading, quote-unquote, to understand core plot points. And now personally, I think that all these things exist on a spectrum. And I don't think Ninjago is the same as Bionicle, is the same as Halo in terms of severity. You know, but I think there's levels. But it is a conversation worth being had. At what point does having, quote-unquote, canon-compliant supplemental material transition from being a good thing to a bad thing?
Yeah. I think for Ninjago right now, I don't think it's a problem with what we got so far. All of the like canon supplementary material we have is Garmadon, which you don't have to read to get the main story. Spinjitzu Brothers, which is like a complete prequel, nothing to do with the current story really. The Dark Island, you can kind of skip and you might be confused about the mural, but that's
not really a big deal, yeah.
So like Quest for the Lost Powers could be like the first one that's essential. And even then it's like woo very much implies like their powers aren't gone forever or stuff like that. So I don't think there's anything that this book really like. It's not required reading necessarily. I don't think that's how it's gonna go.
The most common exchange I've been seeing in the community is the dialogue of, well, would you have really wanted next season to be had to have X amount of episodes detailing how the ninja get their powers back? Isn't it better that they don't, quote unquote, waste time with that? And I'm like, I think that's reframing it a little bit. I think most would have rather it not been set up in the first place.
Yeah.
If it was going to be so quickly swept under the rug. But again,
because
that's a crystallized issue. That's not a book issue necessarily.
Let's be real, like the whole them losing their powers, that was like pretty arbitrary. They could have just said, yeah, no, they didn't.
I'm really not sure why it was done.
I mean,
because they obviously had this
was
as a
it
plan.
to set up the book?
If that's true, that's an interesting conversation to have. If that was explicitly why.
I think, and it's just a theory, but I think why they probably did it is because they knew after Crystallized there's going to be a new series. They wanted to have like all the cards open, basically. And so they left every opportunity. They have the main team, you can do whatever you want with them. You can either have them without their powers or with their powers in the new season. So they completely wanted a blank slate, and I think that's maybe why they did it.
I guess that's reasonable. So then what, they were just like, well, now we've decided on the direction of the new season.
Yeah, but
so
we
now
gotta
you can tie this up in a book.
Yeah, that's what I assume it might be. I mean, it's just a theory.
Yeah, and I mean, I would buy that. And at that point, I would say that's a pretty bad thing from the show's perspective.
Yeah, kind of.
I don't really think that is something I can criticize the book team too much for, like I said. I guess it's the best way to tie up a bad situation. Because, yes, if given the choice, if you remove the third option entirely and are like, well, don't headcanon the show is the show, we got what we got, stop talking about it, then yes, I would rather not have to sit through a 4-episode arc of them getting their powers back next season. I guess I'm glad it's taken care of. That's a pretty low bar to clear. But I guess I am glad. So, I mean, it's kind of a weird situation. What do you guys think, Eljay?
Yeah, we really don't like this repeated instance of the ninja losing their powers and it having to be treaded over, like gone over again and again and again.
Weren't we memeing on this all the way back in like our possession coverages? Like, what way can they have to make them lose their powers this time? You know, oh, it's Lloyd being possessed by a ghost. Oh, and then they just kept doing it.
Yeah, no, it's just feels like we're treading on rehashed ground or rehashing treaded ground. I don't know. Bottom line is that we have this happen again and again and again. It's been done. It is exhausting. And I don't think that it wasn't worth it. There is no point where taking their powers away is worth it, even with the new book. Which we have someone in the YouTube live chat questioning its canonicity. Zero Jump says, "Okay, I find taking the Lost Powers book as canon automatically is dumb. Like, do people take the book Lego Ninjago? That's
Die
in German.
Weisheiten des Meister Wu.
Yeah, sorry, can you say that again?
Die Weisheiten des Meister Wu.
As canon, it's basically the same thing. Thank you, man. Thanks for the save.
It's basically the same thing.
And so, I mean, in this respect, we're considering it canon because the descriptions given suggest that it comes right after Crystallized. It's meant to directly tie in to the ending of Crystallized. It's written by, at least one half of the book is written by an author that has been writing canon Ninjago material with the Spinjitzu Brothers series. You know, it's not... I don't know what book you're referencing. I'm not familiar with it, but in this case, it is fairly definitively trying to tie in and give an explanation to what happens after the end of Crystallized. So for us, it's a safe bet.
Sakota, do you know what this book is?
I just looked it up. I haven't read that one. I assume it's one of the non-canon ones, which would make sense for the comment. But, oh yeah, it's like a short story book. There are a bunch of those. All of them are non-canon.
Ultimately, Zero Jump, here's why. I'll read a quote from Amit's page about this book. Amit being, I believe, the publisher
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. And also the illustrating company, it looks like, responsible for the images in the book. The new LEGO Ninjago middle grade book includes 2 original stories that follow the dramatic events from the end of the 2HY 2022 season when the ninja team struggled against the super powerful evil Crystal King. So, to me, that's pretty self-explanatory. That plays it straight. I think that if you want to say it is not canon, I'd say Ninjago has given you more than enough reason to doubt in the past. But as far as I'm concerned, when I read that, I take it at face value until either the show contradicts it or, well, used to, I would have said until Tommy contradicts it, but I guess we don't even have that to rely on anymore.
Tommy
So
Kalmar is probably good
Tommy
at this
Kalmar could contradict it
because
if he
he has
wanted to.
clarified on books canonicity in the past.
Yeah. You have to assume that it is canon until proven otherwise. Not, because if you don't, then what? You just automatically treat it as not canon, even though it is a part of a continuous story, and it makes direct references until what the show mentions how they got their powers back, and it links up with the book. I guess that would be reasonable, but
I think the main contention and why canon versus not canon matters, because this is a subject we have an intimate familiarity with, is canon material dictates, generally speaking, when it comes to a story-based property, it dictates your investment to a significant degree. So with what we're familiar with Bionicle, knowing what is canon and what is not canon helps us determine what we need to pay attention to for conversations about what happened in the story. And the same thing is true of Ninjago as well, because especially now, so considering that external media, novels, comics, etc., are tying in to the story's main vessel, the show.
yeah, more or less. And a lot of people don't feel that way. A lot of people don't really care. But for the dedicated fans who follow the story and they watch things progress, there's a reason I have more investment towards something like Dark Island or Garmadon or Quest for Lost Powers than I do the book about Salil and the Phantom Ninja.
You should though, because it's very good.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. Maybe I would have read it if it was canon.
Greg wrote it at the time.
I know.
There was no canon.
That's a good point.
Actually, I wonder. Let me see. I'm on the Ninjago wiki right now. She's I guess that's a spoiler. The book's been out for how long?
What, the Phantom Ninja book? Oh, that's been out since like 2013.
Okay.
No, 2014 probably.
Phantom
It rebooted.
Ninja. Here we go.
So Layla appears in Way of the Departed. So you might say, if you consider that canon, she's canon as a character, and then maybe that comic is also canon.
Apparently.
She's also referenced in the Samurai X cave set.
Yep.
Ooh, that to me I think is actually a big enough deal to be like, ah. Let me see. So apparently Tommy Andreasen has touched on it because Salil showed up in a book released in 2012 called Cole, Ninja of Earth, released January 1st, 2012, authored by Greg Farshtey.
Really? 2012?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, because that story... I forgot about this. Yeah, that story is referenced in the Phantom Ninja comic, too.
Interesting.
So Greg kind of ties back to his own story. That's cool. I never thought about it like that.
That's pretty epic.
The wiki states that the original comic, Cole Ninja of Earth, is non-canon. However, if you go to that...
I think that's a book, not a comic.
Oh, is it? Okay, my bad.
I
The
think
book...
so.
Yeah, you're right. The book, however, on the book's page, states, like the other books, this story can be considered canon unless the series contradicts it at some point. When asked whether this book in particular is canon, Tommy Andreasen responded, "Not sure, but there is nothing in it that contradicts the main story." First of all,
Yeah,
oof.
Tommy handled a lot of the like old supplementary material that way. He was like, I haven't read all of it. If it doesn't contradict, you can assume it's canon, but that's not really necessarily how canon usually works.
I crave death.
In regards to the comic, who is the Phantom Ninja? Tommy Andreasen has stated that the graphic novel can be considered canon since it does not contradict anything in the show, and the citation is a tweet, and the tweet says, "I've read it now. There is nothing in it that contradicts the main story, so it can be considered canon if you want." Quoted August 20th, 2016.
And he included the character of Salil after that in Way of the Departed.
Yeah.
Which is also could be canon, but...
Quote, "It can be considered canon if you want." Never have I wanted to like tear my hair out quite as much.
I don't know, bro.
Okay, that's not true. That's not true. There have been many more instances. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting to hear the analogy of Bionicle, because like Bionicle had a similar thing, but very different causes. Like, what if anything in the serials, like nothing really happened in the serials that was mandatory. You could pretty much follow along by reading the main books.
I mean, probably. I mean, there's some stuff that probably doesn't make sense in Bionicle, right? Doesn't like alternate universe pterodax come into the thing in the serials, and it's kind of important.
The way I explained it when I was asked on Krusty's thing was very much that I felt, and I mean, I have no way of knowing this for sure. I forget if Greg's outright stated this. The way I interpret it, the serials were created as a venue to fill all of the amount of sets that were being made at the time. Because I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of the story serials feature retailer exclusive sets or combiner models or characters that were released and just kind of fade out of the relevant story. You know, like, especially in 07. 07 very much, I feel like the only reason we even got the serials in the first place is because there was no room in the main story for, like, friggin' Lesovic and
Karzani,
all that mess. And then from then on, it just became, okay, well, this is a way that we can tell stories without the main crew and kind of give screen time to a lot of the characters, which is very different. And it's a different scenario to me than a canon book in Ninjago with the main characters. It's like the opposite problem. Garmadon is a much better one-to-one analogy.
Mm-hmm. I think ultimately there are two problems here, because on the one hand, not everything is going to be canon. Some things are just going to be things written to advertise, just things written to fill space, and also aim at different age demographics, because not everything is written at like the same level.
That's also something I want to talk about a bit, but I don't know. Am I interrupting you in your train of thought?
Please go ahead.
Okay, because like Zero Jump also brings up the magazine comics. And I saw a lot of people recently on Twitter like complaining about some of the stuff from the Ninjago magazines and like how goofy and childish it is. And I kind of felt like the magazines have always been kind of like this. I see them more as like promo things for Ninjago as a theme than like actual stories. But I do feel like the magazines being non-canon for like the most part, like 99%, does kind of make the whole situation more complicated than Bionicle was, for example. Because like in the later years of Bionicle, like most of what we got in like form of story content was kind of canon, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in Ninjago, there's always this like the magazines aren't canon, some of the books aren't canon, some books are canon, the show is canon, of course. And then Tommy Kalmar, for example, said some of the magazine comics are canon, but they have like contradictions to the show. So it gets like very messy in some ways, and there's no like clear separation.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's more of a problem than having like a lot of supplementary material that's all canon. When there's like, you have to find out what's canon and what isn't.
Yeah. And ultimately, it's an issue that Bionicle suffered with a little bit.
Yeah.
And like,
especially in the early years.
Yeah, and honestly, even with the early years, that became more of a retroactive conversation.
Yeah.
So, and that's where a lot of discussion and argumentation comes into play. Like, oh, Bionicle more flirts with semi-canon material than it does just outright non-canon material. There's,
I mean,
comparatively
hate that
very
term.
little.
Ninjago has that too, which is also something Zero Jump mentioned and something I wanted to mention earlier. The shadow playing in Legoland for Ninjago. The Hageman said it's canon, and Tommy said there are some elements that can't be canon, but for the most part, he considers it canon. So I would put that in the semi-canon area.
The other issue and the real big problem here isn't even that Lego has all of these different mediums for storytelling. I think we can agree that can only be a good thing to have multiple forms of entry into a franchise.
I mean, not everyone agrees on that from
I think
what I've seen.
Okay,
but,
fair enough.
But I agree.
Thanks, Dakota. Thanks, man.
I agree, but I would say that one of Ninjago's strengths is that it doesn't have a lot of that.
So, but let me clarify. I like that there are multiple entries into the franchise. However, I think that a weakness is the lack of definitive canon material being specifically outlined. So, like, you don't have, like, an index that is consistent in saying this is all canon. And you have multiple different people saying this is canon, this is not, this is canon, could be considered canon. I hate that phrase. I hate this could be considered canon phrase. This bothers me so much. So I think that the issue is that there is no unity from the top, just being definitive and clear. This is considered canon. This affects the story. This is something that you should consume so you understand the world better.
Yeah.
And that's why this is a problem.
This was also one of the points that I was a bit upset about with Crystallized's ending, because it kind of very much ignores the lore set up in Dark Island, which is something we clearly know is canon. This is like Dark Island is the supplementary material that's like the most clearly confirmed canon, or the lore they set up in Crystallized's finale, which kind of makes me assume, that the writers have probably not read the supplementary material, even if it's like explicitly canon.
Mm-hmm.
Accurate.
And at that point, it's like, maybe we'd be better off if all the supplementary material would be considered non-canon, but I don't want that. I like having nice books that are canon, but that's going to cause more work, of course, for people writing the show and the books.
Ultimately, the reason why Bionicle was able to do it easily is simply because there were fewer authors, especially as it went on. Early on, it was way more fragmented, but later on, it was basically just Greg. And then I think didn't different people write like the young reader books? Or was that Greg too?
Oh,
I
actually
think that was
just
Greg
got
too.
those.
Some of them, right?
Greg wrote all the young reader novels, like the Journey in Takanuva and like the other ones.
Yeah, those.
Yeah, that's all Greg.
Okay, then that's exactly why.
Did Greg write the dialogue or like for all the comics in the later years too?
Actually, all the comics from every year. That's how he
Okay.
started.
Because I knew he did it in the early years, but I wasn't sure if that continued till the very end.
100%.
That's why. That's why Bionicle was able to do it. With Ninjago, you have so many different people who have had their hands in it at some point or another, and the key showrunner doesn't put a lot of value on clearly defined canon, as evidenced by the could be canon thing. So you're inherently it's inherently going to be looser.
It's kind of funny. It reminded me of something that Tommy recently did an interview for the anniversary of Chima,
Yeah.
and the one writer of Chima was there too. And they said like because Chima had such a complex like story bible and like world with the many tribes and their customs and all that, they couldn't really teach any other writer about this universe, so they stick with one writer for all of it. That kind of reminds me. That kind of reminds me of Greg with Bionicle. Yeah. I feel like it would have been so hard to bring someone in for all the Bionicle lore in the later years, so they just stick with Greg for everything.
You're just inherently gonna get mistakes.
Yeah,
it's just gonna happen.
And of course, the double-edged sword is that even with one person, considering Bionicle's longevity, you would also run into mistakes, because you have a man who has written for like however many years for Bionicle and has forgotten more than some people have ever known, you know?
Which is absolutely something that is true.
And so there's no perfect solution outside of just having a definitive index. And even then, that runs into an issue because there has to be a living document all the time. You have to have every detail saved to that index to know what you're going to reference, what tools you have to play with, what things have happened, what details to pay attention to. Like, there's ultimately no perfect solution.
I've seen a lot of people in the Ninjago community express the sentiment of we either don't want any like written material at all, or we want all of it to be non-canon. But I really don't like that.
That's my thing. It's like, that's what I was saying earlier. I like that there are multiple methods of getting into a story, into a franchise. Because, like, with Bionicle, there was so much you could do to enter it. Commercials that were really cool, some of which were, this is crazy, some commercials that were canon. Novels, graphic novels, comic books, movies. Like, it had a large swath of things that could introduce you.
Yeah.
That works as a negative too, though, because it's inherently more difficult to get into Bionicle.
First,
I mean, it's easier to get into it, right? It's just harder to have like a complete understanding.
That's really the truth of it.
Yes. 100%.
And I feel like, and I think it's the same with Ninjago. Lego, I don't think Lego cares a lot about people like us who are like super high affinity and care about the canon of like theater plays in Legoland. They want to get the foot in the door. They want a kid to see like a magazine at the shop, pick it up, they like the comic, and maybe buy some Ninjago sets after that. They want to get people into the theme, and they don't really need them to be like super high affinity fans.
Yep.
And I think that's what it boils down to. That's why this is even happening. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because like if you're a high affinity fan that cares about canon, you can try to stay up to date with what's canon and what isn't. It just sometimes gets a bit frustrating if things don't line up.
I mean, if anything, my take, I smashed together the two different perspectives you mentioned a minute ago. I'm fine with books. Make all of them canon.
That would be ideal. But would you want the Ninjago magazine comics to be canon?
If they were written well, yeah.
But all of the like, because they always have
goofy
to
little
kind of
mini
tie.
adventures.
Yeah, but they always have to kind of tie into the current season. And that makes it hard sometimes to make them canon.
That is a hard one, yeah.
Yeah.
Make My compromise would be all independent Ninjago stories.
Yeah.
So any
Like
comics or chapter
in my
books.
perfect world, all the magazine comics would be non-canon, all of them, because there are some where like people fight if they're canon or not. And then all the like standalone books and comics would be canon.
Yeah, I
That
would
would
agree.
be my perfect world.
Now, I will take it a step further. Going along with this conversation, I am fine with there being books. I like that there's books. I like that there's different points of entry. I don't think there should be any written material with the ninja. That's my hot take.
I can agree with that actually.
Because that's when you start to get into the issues. That's where you start to get into things like the Lost Powers, where it's like, oh, we wish this had been handled in the show. Keep it to flashbacks, keep it to prequels, keep it to side characters. There sure are enough of them to make stories off of. You don't need Kai, Cole, Jay, and Zane.
I agree, but I mean, there's a clear reason why they want to have the ninja in the supplementary material, right? The kids love the ninja. Yeah. And also, for example, Dark Island has the ninja. I have no problem with it. You know what I mean? It's a side story you can ignore, but it's also a cool story if you don't ignore it. It has the ninja, but it's not like you're not missing out on like character development of the ninja if you don't read the comic.
It's not the end of the world.
It can be done.
It's not the end of the world, but there are some issues. Like we've always said, like, oh, Dark Island. Well, it's canon. It's in the show. There's a mural based off of it. What's that about? People feel like they missed something. Some people feel like they have to go back and read it. Also, the Sky Pirates, they're addressed in that book. We have in that series. We know what's up with them post Skybound from that book. Klaus, relevant, information. A lot of people don't really view it as a side story. And now because it's so scarce and hard to come by, a lot of people feel like they're gate-kept from getting the quote-unquote full Ninjago experience. Well, whether or not that's true or being over-dramatized or not, that's another matter. But
I think in the case of Dark Island, I actually can agree with it because it's so hard to get a copy nowadays. But with all like the Spinjitzu, they've done a really good job since then.
I agree.
Garmadon comic is very well, like, honestly, the books and comics nowadays are better distributed than the show by like a country mile.
Unfortunately.
It's all right because we got you covered. If you check out the YouTube live chat right now, you can find a link to our NINJAGOcast, the Dark Island Trilogy dramatic reading.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. But yes, no, and I mean, we made that video specifically because, and it even says so in the description, it's hard to find the Dark Island. I just looked it up. The first issue, the first, oh gosh, what is it called? They're called parts. The first part is cheap. You can get that for about $10 on eBay. The second and third parts, however, are far more expensive, with an entire collection of the 3 parts running over $100.
What?
Yeah.
How does it jump that much?
In fact, actually, I think I saw a listing that was $130 for all 3.
How does it exponentially increase that much?
I mean, it gets... There are people that want it, and there are less copies available for sale. It's just the way the prices go. It's,
There's part 2 for $36. You can get part 2 and 3 for $135.
Dude, that hurts.
No, it isn't overly dramatic. Like, these novels are hard to come by.
Yeah.
But sorry.
It's also because Dark Island, I think, never got a digital release in any form.
Yes.
Which all the modern books and comics got.
I should probably.
That is definitely part of it.
There we go. Yeah. So it's tough. It's definitely it's a tough thing. I think at the end of the day, the thing that's most important, in my opinion, for the Ninjago story team to keep in mind when it comes to supplemental material is first and foremost make it consistent with what is established. And second, the main issue I feel Bionicle supplemental material ran into was that it was, in certain instances, essential reading. And in fairness to Bionicle, it would tell you if it is. It was very clear, hey, you need to read this to understand this before a chapter started. Even in some books, it would state, hey, you need to read this to understand this. It made, there was little ambiguity about what order you needed to consume it in. That said, it still made it difficult to bounce between a whole bunch of interconnected, differently distributed medias, but it was possible. So
It's so wild.
not only should you make whatever you're writing consistent, make sure that it is definitively clear either in the timeline it takes place, or make sure that it isn't required reading for the future.
Yeah. And I do think Ninjago has done a very good job of that so far. Like, you can watch the TV show on its own. It's like, you might see a mural that might confuse you for a second, but then you'll just forget about it.
And that's one of its strengths that I was alluding to earlier. With Bionicle right now, like, it's very complex to get someone into Bionicle who wants to understand the full breadth of it. You have to paint a tapestry, you need diagrams and charts, and even then, it doesn't really hold up that well under scrutiny. Not the story, but the continuity of it all. Ninjago, you just say go to Netflix. Easy. It's all on Netflix. Just watch it.
Yeah.
That's a strength of it.
What's kind of funny is, like, the most required reading Ninjago has is actually Way of the Departed.
Yeah.
Because it explains why the elemental dragons are gone and Irjitsu's gone.
I have still not read Way of the Departed.
Really? Okay. I mean, it's not done yet.
And
That's
probably won't be
likely,
either
but-
at this rate.
I mean,
I said
Tommy
a long
said he
time ago
wants
I
to.
would read it when it was done.
you should still read it.
It's really funny because it's like it's one of those things that's could be canon, but
Yeah.
a lot of it's one of those things where it's like the story itself could not is maybe not canon, but like the explanations themselves
Yeah,
are
it has a lot
to
of
be
like
considered canon.
kind of like meta lore about
Mhm.
Ninjago.
My cynical nature, I feel like, will intrinsically just make reading it a negative experience. So I prefer to just not read it because I'd rather just let the people who enjoy it. When I look at it, my brain just immediately is like, okay, so it's the plot hole apology tour. And that's kind of all I can really see it as. Even if it's a competently well told story.
I mean, if it's a good story and it fixes
Yeah.
plot holes, there's no negative to it,
yeah,
right?
there's
Yeah.
no harm.
That's my thing, though. I don't care if it's a plot hole apology. Like, I want that. I'm looking for that. You know, that is inherently a good thing. You
It's
know
a
what I
plot
mean?
hole apology tour that we can't actually put on the wiki because it's not canon.
I mean,
it's on
Let's
the
say
wiki.
you read Quest for Lost Powers. Did you feel like it was a plot hole apology tour because it's about them finding powers?
I mean, it's a bit of a different situation. Them losing their powers wasn't really a plot hole that needed explaining.
mean,
It was a plot
like,
point
if-
that needed addressing.
Yeah, I guess.
Also, the book is actually canon until we know any different. Tommy's explicit stating that Way of the Departed isn't makes me it has about the same validity as The Last Spin as far as answering like issues. If you care about the behind the scenes process, cool, but you can't take it to the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ari, like Way of the Departed has already been contradicted so many times in show. I wouldn't know that, but if that is true, LOL. It's a difficult thing. There's no.
Yeah.
I feel like the issue of canonicity and supplemental material, it's like a Rubik's cube. You know, you twist it to one side, then it makes problems on the other. You know, then you gotta twist it back, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah. No,
I personally love that that there is material you can seek out if you're like a very involved fan, I guess. If you want to know more about stuff, if you seek the explanations for stuff just suddenly disappearing, if you, I don't know, if you care a lot. What I'm just worried about is that they won't care about that stuff going forward in the show and it would just be contradicted. And then it feels like, I mean, even though you had fun with the story, it feels like a punch in the face whenever something like that happens.
What I'm worried about is this being a gateway. As I've said, I'm fine with supplemental material. I have my preferences, but I'm fine with it existing. I don't want it to be used as a band-aid. I don't want it to be like, so the actual show is slacking, but it's okay. The book janitors will clean it up later. Because I feel that's a flaw that a lot of franchises dip into. And that is actually where, like, I was on Krusty's podcast and Halo is brought up as an example, and that's where I feel it is actually a valid example. Halo introducing plot points in the game that were just never addressed, only to be like, oh, well, we'll tidy that up in a comic, we'll tidy it up in a book. Well, it's not the same. It's not the same as having it addressed in the primary material.
I don't like that either, but I don't really think, like, Ninjago has done that in Way of the Departed and Splinter, but not in any of the others, really, I'd say.
Not yet.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
It could be a gateway. That's my fear. Lost Powers is the first time. It's kind of actually a big deal. And I'm fine with it this once because I don't really want to see it in the show. But that's a purely subjective thing. On principle, objectively speaking, what's like writing 101, we should probably see it in the show for continuity's sake.
I mean, it depends on the next season. If there's like a time skip or something like that, and Wu very much was like, oh yeah, your power might come back over time, I don't really think it's a problem.
Touche.
But yeah. It's still kind of weird that they introduced it in the first place then.
I agree with you. Josh, how do you feel about this issue?
I think that there are a few things that do a good job. I think that the Spinjitzu brothers did a really good job with it because it's obviously like a prequel. You only really see the ninja like in the very beginning and they're not really doing anything. And so I feel like if they are going to do stuff like in the future, I'd rather them do stuff that doesn't really connect to, like, if it's just stories of like stuff that's happening in the past that doesn't really affect the main show, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to feel about like the new book, but like, yeah, my favorite things are the ones that take place that mostly explore things outside of the show, like that are so disconnected from the show that it doesn't really matter that they exist.
Right.
Like side characters or prequel stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think Garmadon was good because we didn't really see him. It doesn't, stuff that doesn't really matter, I guess, to like the main show. So I guess what you guys have been saying.
You're also the lore master.
Yeah.
It all matters to you a lot.
Yeah. I'm avoiding that because I don't want to gush about it. I don't want to get into like a 3-hour thing, but yeah, I don't know. I do think that like it really sucks if it's like you got to watch the show and then you have to read this to get to get like what's going on. So I like the more detached stuff more, and I like Spinjitzu Brothers because it adds a lot of like a lot of lore, I guess, to like the Ninjago's past and everything.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm a lot more forgiving of the do this and then this approach if it's easy access.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say I think that it needs to be like I don't like I wouldn't consider them, even if the magazines are serious, I wouldn't consider them canon anyway because they're like exclusive only to Europe. Like we don't really see them in the US. So it's really hard to it would be really hard to consider them canon if it's like hard to get. And that's something I wish that like the Dark Island trilogy had done better, was be more available, especially if they're going to make it canon. And that's another thing with like the Garmadon Rules book. I sort of considered that book canon to like Harumi's character, but it was only released in Germany, so it's not really.
I mean, they said it's canon.
I mean,
Tommy Calamar said it's canon, which
LOL.
is wild because it's a book that only got released in like some European countries and never in English.
Yeah,
and doesn't work with Harumi's character in Crystallized, but I mean, yeah.
To be honest, I'd rather have the Garmadon Rules Harumi than the Crystallized Harumi. So.
Can we talk about the recent, I know this is kind of tangential, the recent Harumi controversy?
Which one?
On Twitter.
Oh.
It was the one where the writers unequivocally were just like, yes, she does have feelings for Lloyd.
I mean, he said it's like complicated, but she does have feelings for him or something like that, right?
Yes, and it's interesting to me because we figured that was definitely the implication in the show.
I mean, the Overlord just says it.
Yeah, a lot of people were like on copium because they were like, oh, Harumi never confirmed it. You know, that was just implied. It's not actually the case. They wouldn't actually do that. They were just trying to appease the shippers. They were trying to like have their cake and eat it too. I was like, no, it is actually a thing. They did actually write it that way. Yeah. I just felt like bringing that up because there was a bit of a firestorm about it where some people on Twitter were like, this is my last hope. They can still undo it. They never officially confirmed it, and then they immediately confirm it on Twitter.
I feel like that whole situation was very, it's Twitter. It was very over-exaggerated.
It was.
It was basically confirmed and crystallized.
Yes.
The writer even clarified, like, this is not about the next seasons. This is only about Crystallized because people started speculating a lot about what that means for United.
Exactly.
I'm going to be honest, this is the first time I've heard of this because I haven't touched the Ninjago community.
Good for you. No.
Good for you. Stay away. I basically only like get things in my recommended feed. And then I just kind of I go down a rabbit hole of like memes and outrage. I don't really follow shipping culture because it's kind of inherently whack and I don't really care. But man, the Larumi shipping culture on Twitter.
Dude, the friggin' Ninjago shipping culture is a special kind of what's happening here?
It's wild, dude. It's wild.
I don't even want to talk about it considering some of it.
Yeah, it's probably better if we don't.
Yeah, I think you're picking up what I'm putting down, but
yeah, there are people that are very passionate about that stuff, and I mean that's fine.
More power to you. Enjoy the franchise.
I'm not really.
You want.
You know what? No, I'm gonna go against the grain here. Maybe a little less power to you. Maybe just a smidge.
A smidge less power.
Just let's take this from like Overlord and Crystallized and drop it down to Overlord and rebooted. You know, let's take that down. But yeah.
I don't know. That's basically all I have to say on the conversation.
Yeah. It's an interesting, fascinating conversation. Canon is always a very layered discussion when it comes to Lego. And I am biased. I like how Bionicle did it. It's not perfect. I don't like the complexity, but I like that there were so many opportunities to bring people into the franchise. And as someone like me who is very high affinity, I didn't have an issue when it was coming out, following what was going on. It's really hard going back. With Ninjago, it's interesting to see where they go moving forward, but I do appreciate the simplicity of just having the show be the primary vessel for its storytelling.
You know, people always make... Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just... But I'm always excited for more unique and interesting things.
People always make fun of 2007 Bionicle as being like hard to follow because that was the first year that introduced the serials. You know what year's really hard to follow?
No.
2005.
I figured you were going to say 2005, yeah.
2005 was weird because it had the movie.
Yeah.
And you have like the books and like you can't the books take place in a montage in the movie basically.
That's also, they're also putting aside that it's like the 2004 movie ends with like lining up with the OG years, but then they go back.
2005 is an interquel in between the fourth movie, and the events of 05 don't work in continuity with the movie. Like there's this one scene, there's a character named Norik, and then there's the main character named Vakama, for those who don't know about Bionicle. Norik and Vakama. Vakama storms off. Norik goes to talk to him, and then Vakama leaves. And then he becomes, like, evil for a time. He turns bad, and that's the plot of the movie. In the books, Vakama doesn't storm off and leave. He just comes back and is like, hey, sorry I walked off, guys. Let's go have an adventure. And then, like, 2 books happen. And then the next book is the movie novelization, which recaps the events of the movie and doesn't work as a standalone book, but then it changes how the movie was portrayed, so it's not an accurate novelization. It's wild, and that's the problems when you have too many different materials. I like it when things are kept simple, but I like my supplementary side stories. Other characters are cool. My ultimate thesis, Elemental Master Serpentine War comic series win.
Yeah,
that is all.
That's actually something I just wanted to say. I do think that they might have learned a lesson from Bionicle there, which is that the flashback years in Bionicle confused a lot of kids from what we've heard over the years. Mm-hmm. And I do think that is a reason why they're not doing anything like that in Ninjago. And I think that's the perfect opportunity for supplementary material. Like the Spinjitzu Brothers books kind of do that. They could do Serpentine War, Elemental Master stuff in supplementary material. That would be perfect. But
I agree.
Doing it in the show might be confusing for kids, and I get why they're not doing it because of that.
I mean, it's already kind of confusing whenever they bring it up, and it's like, oh, well, what new threat did they face in the past that they just haven't talked about, you know? Oh, there's Crux of the Chronics, Chin, and now, there's this Mogra guy who was hanging around as well at the time. What's his deal? The more they talk about the past, the more they have to just cram stuff into it.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that Lego learned that lesson. Is a really great point, Skoda. Like, I like the flashback years a lot. They do a lot of heavy lifting for preparing the world for a thing that happens. And they do fill in a lot of gaps and help explain a lot of things. So I love them. But, they were definitely kind of confusing when they happened. It's like, wait, what? Wait. Oh, I get it now. But still.
Magic Ninja in the patron chat. We're not talking about too many spoilers. No spoilers. No spoilers except the premise of the book, which
is public. Yeah. So,
we're actually about to move on from that. So
yes, that was just about to say. Does anyone else have anything else to say? Josh, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, really.
Okay. In that case, we're gonna go ahead and move on to, and then this isn't gonna take terribly long because I gotta get going here pretty soon. But a few weeks ago, we received our first look at Ninjago's second wave in 2023. guys, I'm not totally clear on where this leak stemmed from. It's an official Lego thing, so if you could enlighten me.
I think it was an Instagram post of like some European countries Legos Instagram or something.
Okay. So
I'm generally not sure exactly where, but it was an official social media source.
okay. Fair enough. So let me try and just check this real quick, because I know we did link it.
Yes.
So it was on Instagram. Okay, Lego Czech Republic official page.
Yeah.
They posted an image showing what we believe to be one Lego set, and an child actor playing with the set. And I've broken it up into 3 images that we'll discuss today, because YouTube has a thing about like having children shown, so I just cut him out. So
Smart.
first of all, let's look at the focal point of this. This is Kitongu. Sorry.
Yes.
Old habits die hard. This is a giant mech that we don't know the name of.
I think his name is Kitonga.
No, I think we. Okay. Yeah.
See, I don't know if we do either, because
We know the name. ... But
yeah,
it's
but
a
not
leak,
from
so we're not gonna
official
talk about it.
sources. So yeah, we probably shouldn't mention it.
yeah. So
It's just Kitonga.
you guys go ahead and I'll bring up a photo of Kitongu so folks that aren't familiar with that understand the joke. But while I work on that, go ahead, guys. Talk a little bit about this. What do you think?
Well,
I think. Okay, go ahead, Nessa.
me liking it is predicated upon its function being what we assume it to be.
Yeah.
Which is that it will combine with a smaller mech. As it is right now, not the biggest fan.
I mean, it has an open blue pin axle in the middle of its chest, so I assume that's not how it's gonna look.
You're right.
Like,
it also looks like the pelvis juts out like greatly from like the torso, so clearly something is supposed to fit there, otherwise the proportions are going to be weird.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure something's gonna go there. I assume it's the other mech. We don't know that yet, but that would be my best guess. And I think there's a lot of like creative stuff here. It's very different from mechs we've gotten before, and I really like how those bigger scale Ninjago mechs have been very different from each other.
I love like shoes.
Yeah, the shoes, sandals are the big thing. Those are great.
It gives me golden mech vibes, not like in terms of design, but in terms of it being like an ancient kind of mech that.
I mean, design-wise too, it has the hat.
Yeah, that too.
I think that the Technic panel poncho kind of look is interesting to me. I think I talked to Josh about it. I think it would have been cool to maybe have like vinyl pieces there.
I would have preferred it.
Technic panels, but it looks cool. I like how it looks. It might restrict movement, but we don't know yet. We'll see once we have it in hand.
For everyone watching the video stream, this is what folks have been referring to by Kitongu. This is a Bionicle set. This
You're right.
set number 8755 Kitongu that was released in 2005 for the Bionicle theme. And fun fact, if you've ever heard anyone in the Lego community refer to bright flame yellow, is it bright yellowish orange?
Yes.
You mean Chima yellow?
Everyone, we have an unfortunate announcement to make. Sakota, our dear friend, has unfortunately decided of his own volition, completely unprompted by anything else, to move on from Ninjago. No, I'm kidding. If you've ever heard bright flame yellow, or whatever it is called, sometimes it is referred to as Chima yellow, but before that, it was frequently, and is still frequently, called Keat Orange, and that's because I don't know if it debuted with this set, but it is one of the most prominent sets to have featured it early in its existence. So, anyway, just a fun Lego fact for the day.
I like the color scheme a lot, dark green. I don't think we've ever had a mech in dark green in Ninjago, right?
No, we had one, but well, it was a mix of dark green and sand green. It was Lloyd's, like Aqua Mech from Seabound. I don't remember the name of it.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
That is the big dark green panel. That's true.
But I'll be honest, the only reason I know that is just because it's already on my shelf.
Yeah.
This was a lot of fun to actually watch unfold because this set garnered some amount of, I don't want to say controversy, but I will say conversation, because along with the mech featured in this image, there's a minifigure right below it.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of conversation about who that minifigure is, because the face print, the blurry face print that we see, might suggest that it has some resemblance to one of the Time Twins from
the hair too.
Yeah, and
the face paint, the face paint color is different though. That's my copium.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's impossible to say right now. Ninjago fans always like to jump on whenever we see a minifigure for the next season. Oh, which character could it be? And most of the time it's just like a new character.
It's either Crux with a different face paint or Harumi with a haircut. Those are two of the common proposals. I would like for it to be neither. And
Guys, it's obviously Klaus.
I mean, do you remember when everyone said that Skull Saucer was going to be Klaus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
I love Klaus.
I think Ninjago fans, I mean, the interpreting and speculating is part of the fun, so I get it. But I don't think people should be too set on it being Crux or Harumi.
I don't know, man.
Could just be a new character.
He has an orange transparent blade, so you know.
You mean the time blade?
The reversal blade, yeah.
That blade looks awesome, by the way.
It does. It's cool. Is that no? That's not a new armor piece, right? That's just the that's the Sphero armor piece, right?
I think so.
Oh, but that has like snake heads on it, right?
I mean, Crux
could work with that actually.
Stop saying this. I can't believe. So Crystallized comes out. Oh, we need to take the Ninjago series in an exciting new direction and redeem Crystallized for all of its failings. What will just generate nothing but praise? The Time Twins. I would rip my hair out.
To be fair, and I mean, yes, Meso, you would rip your hair out, but if they want to do a soft reboot, the Time Twins would be a way to do that.
It would be a way.
Yes,
so many other ways.
So I need to say something. Obviously, we can't say set names because they're leaks. But given what we know, given what we allegedly know about it, there's a set name.
Don't do this, Josh.
That could reference the Time Twins.
Don't do this, Josh.
I'll say,
I'm not. Yeah.
I'll say you could probably just go ahead and say what the set name is, because it isn't confirmed, but
it's a rumor.
It's a rumor. We don't have confirmation yet. There also aren't watermarks on set names, so you can say this one.
Okay, I don't know. I just know it's like called like Race Against Time or something like that. It represents time.
I mean, that doesn't have to mean anything. That could just be like something else. Like, oh no, it's a thrilling finale and they don't have a lot of time. But I mean, it could imply something, yeah.
That would make me laugh.
I love how one of my favorite little microcosms recently has been how Crystallized was so awful that it prompted a Twitter renaissance, basically like,
where people started liking Hands of Time.
We were too harsh to everything else. Maybe Hands of Time is actually good though.
That was one of the worst things to come out of this Crystallized discourse. Because like,
so funny, dude.
That is a degree of copium huffing that I haven't seen in a great deal of time.
Crystal Eyes has made me like March of the Oni a lot more, but not Hands of Time.
That I will agree. That I will agree. I mean, it's not like Hands of Time is universally bad. There are aspects of it that are good. I think it's fair.
Pixel was cool.
It's fair to appreciate the things about it that are good, and I think a lot of people were doing that in good faith and reasoned. Yeah. But it's not a good season. It's badly produced, even on just like a technical level. It's not up to snuff.
Sets were pretty cool. Some of them.
They were pretty cool. I like them. I like the Iron
good
Doom.
Fold songs.
Oh yes. They had the best intro. Jump up, kick back, jump up, kick back, jump up, kick back.
Hey, Mesa, don't you know that was the best intro?
Dude. No. It really wasn't, though. It really wasn't.
So, real quick, my thoughts on this mech. I actually really like it. I think it looks really good. It's got a really interesting color scheme going on. The dark green, while not one of my favorite shades, I'm far more partial to. Gosh, I don't remember like the technical name for it, but it's green. I guess you would call it
green.
Like, Ninja Night Stalker greens might need to be what I refer to it to. But it's the green featured on the minifigure in this thing. I think it looks really cool. I actually really like the burnt orange on those Technic panels. I'm curious to see how that interplays with the other part of the set we're about to talk about. I think it's got interesting color layering. The build looks fascinating. I want to see more. It looks like it might have knees, but verdict's out. I think the foot design is very unique, and I'm interested to see how that works. And the minifigure looks interesting. Yeah. Both of them look intriguing at a base minimum. So
I want to see how the angles work. Honestly,
yeah, I agree.
Because it has like
the mech. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
Sorry. I was gonna say it looks like it's like kind of forced together with like some side building and stuff, like just kind of with some studs. Like that's how it's hinged. That's just what it looks like to me. Either that or it's no, it's probably just a ball joint. Yeah, it's just a ball joint with the 2x3 like plate thing there stopping the foot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, never mind.
So this mech, I'm excited to get my hands on it.
Yeah, I think overall it just looks like very old-timey, and not like the very futuristic mechs we got with a lot of the Titan mech sets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the Oni Titan or something like that, where it's maybe not a mech but like a reanimated statue or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it is.
Yeah. Who knows? Let's go ahead and move on to the second part of this set. There is another one, another mech, and this one is fascinating for a few reasons. First of all, it appears, just from this image, it appears to be Keat Orange, which means, yeah, as Dark Takanuva in our patron chat mentions, we're getting the SCCBS shells in a new color, which is always welcome. Let's get them in that Nightcrawler green, please. It seems to feature some dark green as well. There's another minifigure, which we can't really see. And it's being very creative. It's being so unique. It's using a dragon headpiece as the chest piece, and it's using chest pieces as thigh armor.
Yeah,
I think that's cool.
That is cool.
A lot of.
Are you being sarcastic, Eld? Do you not think it's done well?
I don't want to say it isn't done well. I'm just saying that it's unique. I'm not sure I'm on board just yet.
I'm on board with the dragon for the chest armor.
Yes,
the legs look really bad.
I agree.
I think that they would look good if they connected to the big mech, because you have like these. You would have these big like orange plates kind of going into like the main leg of the big mech. You know, like I feel like if it's connected with the big mech, it would look like the like armor would look better.
I agree.
Yeah.
I would want to see it from the sides before saying if I like the upper legs or not, because it depends on how they fill out those shells. But so far it's a unique like it has a unique shaping. I like that they're not just doing the standard SCCBS all the time. Even if sometimes they try some a bit more like wacky stuff. I'm a fan of
experimentation is good with
Yeah.
this system. It's the only way it's ever going to evolve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's why I don't want to say like it's bad. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm just saying I really don't know how I feel about it yet. But who knows? I could warm up to it. I'm not going to be definitive right now. So, it looks like an interesting mech. Anyone else? Josh, do you have anything to add?
I already said everything. I like it. It's cool. I like the minifigure. The helmet's really cool.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, but it looks pretty unique.
Kind of looks like a Triceratops head.
It looks. I was gonna say it looks like a rhino.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh.
It's Rogan from Chima.
Nope, we're moving on. That's it. Nope. Third image that I have here, and the last one worth discussing, is just there's another mystery minifigure. He's got a mystery weapon. There are tools on the ground. Unfortunately, it's just too blurry to make anything out that's definitive, but if you guys had anything you wanted to say.
Imagine if it's actually a Time Twins Chima villain team up.
I'd probably quit the franchise on the spot. That would be my departure point. I think.
Oh man.
My thing, plain and simply, is I don't know for sure, but I think it's reasonable to infer this is a Lloyd mech. It's green.
Yeah.
And if it's a combo mech, that means whoever he's comboing with is an ally. And unless that Matoran. Wow. I got Bionicle on the brain. Unless that minifigure is Skylar, which I guess is possible. New character, question mark?
I mean, Josh mentioned one of the names of sets already. I know the names of these sets, so
yeah.
New characters, exclamation point. Please and thank you. Thank you, show. I'm very interested. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I don't really got anything else, so.
Cool.
That being the case, do any of you guys have anything else you want to briefly touch on, but very briefly? Anything else about these you want to say?
I'm excited to see more of the sets and more better pictures. I don't know when that's going to happen, but those look very different from what we got before. And that's interesting to me.
Down with hands of time. That's what I'll say.
Okay. Josh?
I really hope that it's Crux.
I'm watching you, Josh.
I think just for the potential, just for the comedic value, I kind of want it to be.
If they could start off the new series and do the Time Twins well, that would impress me.
Yeah.
A lot. That's what I'm gonna say.
All right, but Mesa, how can you ignore such great quotes as "They didn't win, we lost"? From the hit Seminola masterpiece, The Attack. I love The Attack.
The Attack is the best episode, in my opinion.
The Attack. That season's a trip.
Oh yeah, it is.
All right, that's all I got.
All right, cool. We're gonna go ahead and wrap up here. Just real quick. Last Ninjago cast, I mentioned wanting to have members of the Ninjago community on to kind of give their thoughts as well, kind of lend more voices to more people. We did get someone that reached out to us regarding that. I apologize if you're listening. I haven't responded yet. I've just been really, really busy with work. Like, honestly, like, I have work in about 30, 40-ish minutes. So I'm going to be leaving soon. We did get your email. Thank you so much for reaching out. and thank you for broadcasting that message. I want to again mention we're looking for input from the Ninjago community. We want to hear from more people and have more guests on in the future. So if that's something that might interest you, or you might have something you want to discuss, please let us know. We're interested in hearing from more people. Please spread the word.
Eljay, how do you like your excuses? Scrambled or boiled?
You know what?
Wow.
This has been another episode of the NINJAGOcast. I'm not. Listen, what do you want from me, dude? What do you want? I've been working.
Respond to emails, Brett.
Okay, I will. You know what? I'll do it today.
Cool. Swag.
I'm not going to say that. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and wrap up for today. Thank you all so very much for listening to this episode of NINJAGOcast. For now, the dojo is once again closing. Make sure you head on over to the TTV message boards at board.ttvchannel.com if you're 13 years or older, and follow the rules to continue the conversation, or in the comments section below. Make sure you like the video if you liked it, comment, because it does help us. We love hearing what you have to say, and of course subscribe and hit the notification bell for more LEGO and Ninjago content. I have been your Sensei, Eljay.
I have been Meso.
I have been Sakota.
And I have been Josh.
And once again, this has been NINJAGOcast. The dojo is now closed. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Until next time, farewell.